Haven and whoever is out there listening, and welcome back to another episode of Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman, and I am so excited to be here today with maybe like the most star-studded lineup that we've ever had on this show. I'm just really excited. I am here with some folks talking about ConnCAT's second annual Jazz Brunch, which is this Sunday, September 14th, from I have noon to 4 p.m. at ConnCAT, and we'll get into that, which is in the Science Park neighborhood of New Haven. But I want to introduce my guests so folks know who you're listening to. So I have with me, I'm just going to go clockwise, so how people are appearing on my screen. Steve Driffin, who is the Director of Programs at ConnCAT, Opal Harmon, Director of HR and Operations, William Fluker, who is an arts educator at Davis Street School, a longtime jazz musician in New Haven. You may know all or some of his work, and really just like a Renaissance man who shows up for young people in a way that I think is all too rare and just exceptionally beautiful. And the one and only Eric Clemens, President and CEO of ConnCAT and CEO of ConnCorp. Welcome to all of you. Welcome. I'm so happy to have this beautiful group of humans here today.
Thank you for having us, Lucy.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So I want to jump right into talking about the second annual Jazz and Gospel Brunch, and then we'll get in the way back machine and talk about why this has deep history in New Haven, and specifically in what is now recognized as Science Park, and then also in Dixwell, which is like a 10-minute walk away from ConnCAT's current offices. So Opal, I'm going to kick it to you first, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the Jazz and Gospel Brunch. I know that this is something that you've been building not just this year, but also last year, and what folks can look forward to when they're walking into this space on Sunday.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned that you're going to take it way back, so I won't jump ahead of you. I'll just talk about last year and this year. So last year, we decided to start the Jazz and Gospel Brunch back up, and it was the inaugural ConnCAT and ConnCorp Jazz and Gospel Brunch. And Eric Clemens and I were talking, and he said, well, let's not just have a brunch. Let's have a brunch with a purpose. And so that's how that idea formed, to honor community members, to honor artists. Last year, we honored Mr. Fluker, and we honored Jesse Hameen, some New Haven great local artists, musicians. And so that's how the idea started, and we made it like an annual thing.
And I know we're going to take it way back, but also can you talk about the folks that you're giving flowers to this year, that you're honoring this year?
Absolutely. So this year we decided to honor the committee, and we got together, and of course Eric Clemens, who heads the ship, and we talked about honoring Lakeisha Jordan, who is with New Alliance Foundation. Lakeisha has been a long-standing supporter of ConnCAT. In fact, she was instrumental in us receiving a $1 million grant from Key Foundation, and along with other grants over the years. We're also honoring Miss Karen McIntosh, and she is with Yale, I believe Dwight Hall, and also Miss Diane Brown from Stetson Library.
Which is also a star-studded lineup, sort of in and of itself. Okay, so there's so much I want to talk about. I want to talk about the performances. I want to talk about jazz and jazz music and its importance in the fabric of ConnCAT itself. But I want to take it way back to the first half of the 20th century. So maybe not like way back, but way back, circa like 1934, which is when Rufus Greenlee opened the Monterey on Dixwell Avenue. So if folks are interested, or if folks are familiar with Dixwell Avenue, and if you live in New Haven, it's the size of a minute. So if you're not familiar with Dixwell Avenue, like I don't know what you've been doing, you've probably walked past the building that once housed the Monterey. And it was, I feel like Dixwell was very significant as both a self-sustaining Black business corridor and also a jazz corridor that lived sort of in this like jazz highway or jazz line that also included Bridgeport, of course, New York, Boston, other cities. So I'm wondering if we can talk about, and Mr. Fluker, maybe we'll go to you, the significance and history of jazz in New Haven, because I know sometimes I talk to young people and they don't know. They don't know about our history.
Yeah. Well, um, first of all, jazz is a language, and it's a language of freedom of expression, and we use it to celebrate our sense of identity. And reaching way back in time, uh, jazz has really always been around, you know, but you have those great men like Duke Ellington, Cap Calloway, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. You have those guys that have just made the music an incredible art form, you know. And the young people these days, they are grasping onto it now. And because of the idea of expressing themselves, being able to express themselves.
And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the rich history of jazz in New Haven, which I know that you tap into. You tap into
Yes.
that in your own work, in your collaborations with your wife, Lisa Bellamy Fluker,
Mhm.
and also with your students. So with students at ConnCAT, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and with your students in the New Haven Public Schools.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you can just talk about, how we can access that history, of course, on Sunday and all year long.
Okay. Yes, sure. Yeah. I guess I'll go as far back as the 1920s. Okay. Where we had the Lindy Hopping, and uh, after slavery, um, we had the opportunity to move into, I'll put it this way, to express ourselves uh, freely. Uh, um, Prior to that, of course, in slavery, the music was happening, but it really wasn't happening. There were certain places that you could play and certain places that you could not play. Um, um, During the Harlem Renaissance, um, it was a time after slavery um, allegedly ended. Folks were able to move to various parts of the country and of the United States. New York, or Harlem, New York, was one of the most popular places, and uh, uh, all of the arts, so-called African Americans, they began to flourish in all of the art forms, and it just became a popular music. And you had your folks like Louis Armstrong, uh, who are basically, they're the founders of this music. They're considered the founders of jazz. The creators. But we used European instruments and to play African rhythms and melodies, and it just develops on and on and on.
I want to bring Mr. Clemens, Eric Clemens, into the conversation and talk a little bit about how jazz jazz music, and also jazz as a celebration of Black identity ties into the work that ConnCAT is doing and has been doing for a number of years. I want to hold on to something that Mr. Fluker said, which was after slavery allegedly ended. And as we know, maybe I'm going to get in trouble with the powers that be for saying this. It feels like everything's a little more precarious these days. But like, as we know, the economic disenfranchisement and the oppression of Black Americans continues today. That did not end in the 19th century or even in the 20th century. And so I would love to know a little bit about how the work that ConnCAT is doing, which ties directly into pushing back against that and lifting up not just the Black community, but I would say the whole New Haven community. And then, of course, Connecticut ripples out from that. And how the music of jazz, the identity, everything that surrounds the art making ties into the work that ConnCAT is doing in New Haven.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. And again, thank you for having us on to give voice to the things that we are doing and definitely the things we care about. I think no different than what Mr. Fluker said, jazz, especially, and I also, the other art forms with jazz, since we're talking about jazz, and maybe I can flow in a little gospel here too, really speak to the human condition of Black people, in my opinion. The idea of creativity, innovation, self-expression that Mr. Fluker talked about, the power of rhythm and beat and syncopation and folks being in the same on the same time in the same wave is really, really important and was really important, especially when there were laws that stated that one could not express themselves in any other way other than through work. And so when we think about that, right, the human condition of Black people in Black communities, Black neighborhoods, especially, our work is that expression. Our work is also an expression of resistance to what is happening to people, especially people who look like me, or who look like us. And so the work is an expression of resistance. It's an expression of celebration. And it is something that points you to what could be possible, given the conditions that one finds themselves in. And so that's why this work is so important. That's why this invitation to come be with us on Sunday is so important. Everything we do is an honoring and also an invitation to community to be with us as we, and I always talk about the idea of honoring past, while folks who are in the past walk with us and guide us to the future. And so that's what our work is about. That's what this celebration is about. We're celebrating 3 incredible Black women who especially understand the issues and the power of Black communities and are connecting their work to those issues. As we mentioned, Diane Brown from the Stetson Library, Lakeisha Jordan from New Alliance Foundation, and also Karen King from the Office of Affairs at Yale University. And so that's what this is really about. It's not just a celebration of music. It is a pointing to the human condition whereby innovation, self-expression, musical expression, power of resistance, all collide in a way that creates sound waves. And those sound waves allow for people to connect not only to the music, but to their self, to their ancestors, and again, what could be possible for those who have yet to be born. That's why jazz is so important to us. That's why gospel, R&B, we celebrate those things. And not only do we celebrate them, but as you know, through the summer, we teach those expressions to our children.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Who, as Mr. Fluker said, would not know otherwise.
Right.
right? And we started year one, and I wanted the kids to learn the Harlem Renaissance because that was a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That was a movement. And these Black people, off the heels of slavery, migrated to a place called Harlem and built their own community. And that community now still lives. And folks around the world look back at that community as a real enduring legacy. So the kids learned that. Steve then said, we want to learn now about Detroit and the Motown sound. So our students went through the time continuum from the Harlem Renaissance to Detroit, where there was still community building around through the vein of the arts. They learned that, and then we went right up to the celebration of the 50 years of hip hop. Another phenomenon.
Yes.
Started by Black people in Black communities.
Yes.
And so that, again, it's not only us wanting to listen to the music, celebrate the music, but we also want to teach the music. That's why Mr. Fluker was honored for his years of service at ConnCAT. And that's why Nikki Claxton was honored for her years of service.
Thank
who's
you.
an incredible dancer and dance instructor. And even more so, we celebrate them as human beings.
Yeah, and I do want to, so I'm going to bring the conversation to Mr. Steve Driffin, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, just because Mr. Clemens, you brought up Nikki Claxton this week, I just had the pleasure and joy of visiting her at the New Elements Dance and Movement Conservatory, which is in Woodbridge, 17 Hazel Terrace. They have classes, I think, every day of the week. Her acro class will have you hurting, so I've heard. I'm not courageous enough to, I haven't been courageous enough to try it out yet. It's part of my dream, but no, but like an incredible dancer, mentor, arts educator, who has saved the life. Like, I know New Haven Public School students whose lives she has saved. And also, speaking of that life-saving and life-transforming work, I want to bring the conversation to Mr. Steve Driffin. You working with Mr. Fluker, working with the ConnCAT staff, working with Rachel Graziano, and so many other arts educators and students, and young people who come back as mentors. So I want to just hold space for them. You make time to make sure these students know their history and New Haven's history. They know the greatness of the place where they are growing up. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that significance, and then also how you chose to teach jazz, which I remember last year, I think, had like a really fun reimagining of the Monterey on top of everything else, jazz and the Harlem Renaissance. Students sort of reimagined what their renovation of the old Monterey building would look like, which I thought was so fun and so inventive.
Yeah. Lucy, it was let me tell you the magic of Mr. Fluker and Nikki Claxton and Rachel Graciano and Jasmine, and Powell. It's been incredible. And even former, artists, instructors who even moved on. We had Harry Dicker, who was incredible, so individuals who really just meshed. You couldn't ask for a better chemistry, a better dream team than this team that exists now. So it's really the thoughts of us coming together. It's not one collective, just like in music, right? The band is the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah.
How that go, right? So really, it's not one instrument that makes the sound. It's all the instruments combined, and I would say it's all of the staff and that come together to bring this to make it what it is, and who believe and love, the history. Love our history, love our children, and see the value in instilling in them. Just these genres of music and keeping it alive in a generation that are now alpha, millennials, Gen X, and everybody else, all the other alphabets that I don't know, right? So we keep it alive through that. So it's been great. The Harlem Renaissance is the platform for all of this. we would not have any genre of music if jazz did not start it off, if gospel didn't start it off, because house music is gospel, right? So it's all a connection. Nothing is separate. So that's what I love about what we do here.
Mhm.
Mr. Fluker, it looked like you wanted to hop in, and I would love for you to, because so much of this program you have helped, midwife into the world.
Well, yes. Wow. It's a wonderful thing, and I get a little emotional. Always when I'm with this team, the ConnCAT team, it's nothing like it. And it's jazz. That's all I can say. It's jazz because one important thing about jazz is allowing folks to have an idea. And then what we do as musicians, we call it improvisation. And a definition I use for that is to improve upon an idea. And so one person has an idea and we just go with it. And then there's this beautiful thing. And that's basically what I like to say. Listening to Steve, there's no team like this. Where we can. I haven't. All of the things that I've done, I have yet to find a team. With the understanding, because understanding is everything. We have to understand the children. We have to understand what we do and what kind of impact that we're going to make in their lives. And then we have to model that. So, it's just ConnCAT,
Yeah.
jazz.
I think, when Mr. Fluker, there's nothing like watching him teach, quite frankly. And I will say personally, Mr. Fluker taught my 4 daughters how to play instruments, and Miss Nikki Claxton taught my 4 daughters dance. And so I know them well, and I know the love that they pour into the lesson. But I think most importantly for me, when I listen to Mr. Fluker play, when I listen to any jazz musician play, when I listen to a gospel singer sing or a choir watching them move, to me, that movement and that singing and that playing are forms of overcoming.
Woo.
Because when I think about what was done to Black people in this country, starting with enslavement, and for those people to create a tradition of expression by virtue of sound, and now that tradition has now become a phenomenon, it is just the most powerful thing I could ever think about. So it's not just the music or a form of entertainment. It is a salient and powerful rendition of overcoming.
Yes, sir.
Right. To sing above your circumstances, right?
Yes, sir.
And to believe that it's being heard.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Fluker. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, I was just thanking Mr. Clemens for what he just said. That was powerful.
So I also want to say, and this actually feels like a good segue into it. So thank you so much, Mr. Clemens. We are at a really interesting inflection point for jazz in New Haven, that Jesse Hameen, who was honored last year, actually spoke to when he was also recently honored by Neighborhood Music School, where he has helped build this beautiful summer jazz program that it's not just for children. People think NMS is just for kids. It's not just for kids. Grown-ups go to the jazz program too, and then they come out of it and they continue to teach, which is beautiful. But we are at this point where a lot of the folks who made sure that jazz was alive and vibrant and very robust in New Haven in the really the first half through the end of the 20th century are passing on. And they are becoming part of the legacy of jazz rather than part of the living history of jazz. And these include, in the last year, I should say the last 2 years, in December of 2023, we lost the great Willie Ruff.
Yes.
And then earlier this year, we lost the also great Dinky Johnson,
Dinky Johnson, that's right.
who not only was a phenomenal jazz musician and organist, but was a phenomenal educator.
Yes, that's
Something
correct.
that I didn't know until I was speaking with a couple people, and Jesse Hameen's wife, Iman Hameen, said, "Oh yeah, he was my assistant principal when I was at Hill House," and that led me down a whole rabbit hole. So he was this just wonderful math educator who educated generations of New Haven students on top of his work as a jazz musician, and briefly a venue owner. And so we're at this point where we are losing these great folks. And we, of course, when people pass on, we risk losing that history as well. And so I'm wondering, and anyone is welcome to jump in and answer this question, what does it mean to be presenting this jazz and gospel brunch right now, and not only honoring and holding space for this history, but also ensuring that it has a future in New Haven?
I'll jump in and say, for me, it's almost keeping alive the legacy of jazz in New Haven itself. I remember moving to New Haven, and there was only maybe one or two jazz clubs left, and I remember going to them, and it was old Dinkies, right? I remember those places.
Yes, on Gough Street.
Right, exactly right. So those are like the places I remember going sitting, and no one knew me, and I was sitting in the back just listening to jazz. There was another one on Whaley Avenue, and so for me, for us doing this is just us really just kind of a continuum of a past history of New Haven that, as rare as it is, but it still exists. And hopefully as we move on and as we continue this and move to a new location, it will just be a new renaissance of this era of keeping jazz alive.
I think, and I was waiting for Opal to say, because she hasn't spoken in a while.
Yes.
I would love to hear her voice in this, and I'll wait.
Okay, so I think it's especially important in this political climate to continue this legacy, because it's a reminder of our ancestors' oppression and how they were able to continue to shape the American culture. And I think it's important that we're doing this, especially now, and just to remind and to keep that legacy alive.
I think also, and I'm going to go biblical a little bit.
We're talking about gospel, please.
Gospel, yes.
Yes, because when the prophet spoke, there was someone writing what he was saying. And so it's not only just the legacy of the music and the musicians, or developing young or younger people to continue this music. Wynton Marsalis has been doing that for decades, right? He's very intentional about that. But it's equally important, Lucy, are people like you who are telling the story in the moment, and those stories being captured on paper and then read and then captured in the heart. And so I think that's just as important in terms of the endurance of this art form. It is the musician, it is the conditions that are being discussed through the music, and it is people like you, Lucy, and your husband Tom, and others who are capturing the profundity of the moment through their writing. And that's just as important.
Oh, thank you. I feel very lucky because I get to document joy, which is kind of rare in this. It is unfortunately increasingly rare in this moment to get to experience and document joy. So thank you, but I feel super lucky and very blessed. I want to remind listeners just before we move on that if you're just joining us or if you've been hanging out with us, we are on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman, and this is Arts Respond. I'm here with Mr. Eric Clemens, who is the president and CEO of ConnCAT and the CEO of ConnCorp, Mr. Steve Driffin, who is the director of programs at ConnCAT, Opal Harmon, Ms. or Mrs. What do you prefer, Mrs. or Ms.? I always like being called Ms., but
Opal is fine.
just Opal.
Fine.
Opal Harmon, like amazing human being, Opal Harmon. I'm gonna find a better title. Director of HR and Operations at ConnCAT, and Mr. William Fluker, who is a longtime arts educator, joining us from Davis Street School, which I love. So in the New Haven Public Schools, and also the architect of just some really beautiful arts programming at ConnCAT that, as Steve knows, as everyone on this call knows, and hopefully as New Haveners who are listening know, just has like transformed probably hundreds of kids' lives, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I want to go back to something that Steve, you said, which is you kind of said like at the end of a comment, like, and hopefully that'll all translate when we move over to Dixwell. But this is part of why I think we are thinking of what a jazz and gospel brunch means in this moment. So maybe I'll kick it over to Opal and Eric and say, can you talk a little bit more about how ConnCAT and ConnCorp are growing their footprint in a way that I think actually does fit into some of the like artistic and cultural impulses that informed and still inform, why we create beautiful things, why we create culturally meaningful things, right?
Go ahead, Eric. You
Please,
can
Opal.
speak better to this.
I can add to yours.
No, I think that you have a way of tying it all together and speaking for ConnCAT and ConnCorp, so please.
All right, thank you. Great question, Lucy. As folks may know, we are now building a place on Dixwell Avenue. We will be vacating this space for Science Park. ConnCorp offices will be vacating our space at the lab at ConnCorp. So the lab at ConnCorp will be purely a Black business incubator. And we had the idea, and quite frankly, the audacity to believe that we could create place and space, create economic infrastructure and capital formation in a community that has languished in poverty, that we could deliver, hopefully, beauty, thereby more dignity to that historic Black community through our efforts and through the advent of our economic development efforts. And so we, for the last 7 or 8 years, have been working diligently, assembling the parcels, which was then Dixwell Plaza, including the Elks Hall, master planning that entire site, that entire block from Webster Street to Charles Street, programming that entire site, and programming based on what the community stated they wanted and needed, and sometimes yearned for. And so that first building up that is on the corner of Webster and Dixwell is the ConnCAT and ConnCorp headquarters. And in that will be our programs that we are talking about on this show, as well as a child and family guidance center that will be ran by the Hill Health Center, the Friend Center that will be ran by an early childhood center that will be ran by the Friend Center. Also, leased spaces. Yale has leased a good portion of the upstairs, as well as another foundation that has leased 14,000 square feet. And so, that building will, all things ideal, will open in May of next year. So we are now transitioning from Science Park and the Lab at Concord to that building very soon. And also are raising funds to stand up 184 units of housing, retail spaces. We're bringing a grocery store and a food hall. And then the next phase will be a performing arts center, an office building that will be at the corner of Charles Street, townhouses and greenhouses. It's an 8-acre footprint that, all in, this project is looking at $220 million.
That's just astounding, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we are doing that with the intention and, again, the audacity that we believe that the Dixwell community especially deserves better than what they have gotten.
Yeah.
As it relates to investment, as it relates to beauty, as it relates to dignity, as it relates to all these things that all communities should have, but they do not. Only some do.
Right.
And so that is our, again, expression of resistance. That is our expression of hope and purpose. And that is our, quite frankly, our promise as it relates to us being a part of the social contract. And what's most important is that none of us, as it relates to ConnCAT or Concord, are formal developers. So that means that we are not walking away with an equity stake in this. We are not. We are raising money for the express purpose to do what we said we were going to do. And we're not making any money from this at all. This is purely a journey of the heart.
And I should say, like, when we talk about under-resourced neighborhoods, chronically under-resourced neighborhoods, people sometimes use the passive voice. You were not, but people, including folks in the media, so guilty as charged, sometimes use the passive voice. And we know that there was nothing passive about neighborhoods becoming chronically under-resourced, right? And so not only is this a huge revitalization in Dixwell and of Dixwell, and I would say with Dixwell, there's been a lot of community input, but it is also, I think, a reference to some of Dixwell's early 20th century history.
Yeah. Yeah. And and you are right. It is a chronic disinvestment of a community.
Disinvestment is the word I was looking for.
No, I got you. And not only chronic, but even worse, intentional.
That's right.
Intentional. And so we want to address the systems that have calcified the growth of this community in a way where the people of that community own it.
I do want to bring in Opal Harmon, your voice, and talk about how the arts are very much part of this and what folks might expect to see on Sunday. When we're talking about this, I always think of Dominique Morisseau and her cycle of plays about Detroit, the city of Detroit, and specifically her show Paradise Blue, which talks about the program of quote unquote slum clearance, which was just a fancy way of saying racism and white supremacy in the 20th century and how it displaced families in Detroit's Black Bottom neighborhood. And we saw some of that through programs of urban renewal, again, urban renewal in scare quotes for listeners who can't see my hands, in New Haven, and the massive displacement of families in the city. And so I'm wondering, if if you can talk about what folks will see, a little bit about what folks will see. You don't have to spoil anything.
Lucy, well, real quickly, I'm sorry, Opal. Would you happen to be from Detroit?
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit.
Oh.
So thank you, Lucy. We're so excited about Sunday. Sunday from 12 to 4 You can expect great gospel music from the one and only William Fluker and his band, from gospel singer, award-winning gospel singer, Lisa Bellamy Fluker, and she also has 3 backup singers that she will be bringing with her from New York. Again, we have our 3 great honorees. We have, and we want to thank our sponsors. I would be remiss if we did not thank our sponsors, which is New Alliance Foundation. We have Star Supplies, which is a vendor, another great RJ Developers, and Secret Angels out of Brantford, also sponsored. And you can expect great food from our own ConnCAT Culinary School. And so they'll be providing all the foods, all the desserts will be freshly baked, made from scratch items. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, $50, and a part of that money will go back into the ConnCAT Culinary School program. And so it's a little price to pay, but there'll be raffles. I want to mention that we have some great prizes that we'll be raffling off, including Broadway tickets. And again, the weather is supposed to be great. It will be a great celebration, sort of the end of summer of community, arts, music, jazz, and just the wonderful vibe and energy that is here in the New Haven space.
Yes, I think that's true. And I should have said, this should have been at the top of the program, but just for folks who don't know ConnCAT and ConnCAT's work, which is really amazing and very far-reaching, it includes not only the youth programming that Steve and Mr. William Fluker do, but also adult programming, including the Culinary Arts Program, a Construction Academy, the Bio Launch Program, which is relatively new and really exciting, and then a program in phlebotomy and I believe medical billing and coding. Is that?
Medical billing and coding is no longer. That has
Oh,
been.
okay. I'm so sorry about that. And I will also say, I think I texted, this maybe was the weirdest text ever. I think I texted Mr. Clemens once after getting my blood drawn, and I was like, I just had the nicest phlebotomist, and we talked about ConnCAT the whole time. But I feel like every time I've gotten my blood drawn, it's been someone who has gone through ConnCAT, and it makes it such a way more pleasant experience because we can talk about New Haven history instead of talking about that big needle and that prick. So thank you on behalf of everyone who has to get their blood drawn.
Yes.
I appreciate it. I will say Harry Droz is going to drop the link, which I'm sending him. But I also just want folks to know, if they're listening to this and they think, oh my goodness, I haven't been supporting this community resource in a way that I could, how can they get involved?
That's a great question. So again, we have a link if they're not able to attend the brunch on Sunday. There is also a link that will point them to donations. So they can sponsor through that. They can go to our website. They can send a check. There are volunteer opportunities. They can always reach out to Eric, Steve, or myself to find out ways to get involved. We have other community events that are upcoming, more to come on that, with other ways to get involved in the ConnCAT and ConnCorp space.
And just before we head out, I think it's been an exceptional, it feels like I'm saying this every week, but it feels like it's maybe been an exceptionally heavy week in the world. And I'm wondering if all of you, this show started during the COVID-19 pandemic, just to talk to artists about how they were coping. And that unfortunately still feels very, very present and relevant right now. And I'm wondering if folks can just speak a little bit about how you are taking care of yourselves when you're pouring so much into others.
Well, I guess I'll start, and I was reticent because I have a hard time talking about myself, and definitely even harder time thinking about myself. And so I believe that what I'm doing and what I've been able to do and be blessed to be able to do is I've been called to do it for this moment right now. And that being said and being believed, I think more about ways in which I can change the hearts and minds of folks who have been oppressed, while at the same time changing the hearts and minds of folks who have been the oppressors. And in that work, I'm able to discover myself as well. And so for me, it has been, even in the death of my wife due to the pandemic, it has been a season of self-discovery while shedding self-preservation. And so, to your question, I don't really think too much about self-care, because self-care for me is caring for others.
Whoa, I like that.
Yeah. I probably would get sick or something if I were not caring for other people.
Wow. Wow, that is so profound, interesting.
Well said, Eric. Well said.
Mhm.
To echo Eric, I think that we're in the service business. And so for me, it gives me great joy to show up to work every day. I actually was talking to Chef Jenna earlier, and we talked about no matter how heavy it gets, we actually enjoy coming to work. So that's a part of the self-care. But for me, just cultivating laughter, song, and dance every day. I am a deeply spiritual person, so I do a lot of praying. I do a lot of, I have a community and a circle of beautiful people in my life, including some of whom are on this call today. We spend time in deep conversations, not just about work, but about ourselves and about, the work that we do, about how to take care of ourselves. But again, it's important to cultivate that joy and that laughter, song and dance, which we do a lot of laughing at ConnCAT. We do a lot of laughing. We laugh about everything. We always have a movie title or a song or something. So that's important. And that's self-care, just cultivating that laughter, that song, and that joy. So that's what resonates for me in taking care of ourselves.
What resonates for me? Are you here? Am I still there?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep,
Yeah.
still on.
You sound beautiful.
okay. Wow. What resonates for me is basically caring for others. I guess I probably would be saying what Mr. Clemens said, caring for others. I always had the idea of giving people what they want, so they will want what I have to give, and it's simply caring, you know. And what helps me, I guess, stay healthy is having a positive mindset every day. And how I do that is I read the word. And the most interesting thing is the word of God is the gospel. You know, it's the gospel and it's truth. The truth about um, what allows us to be able to live together, work together, play together, truth, and that to me is God. And I like, and the idea that I have is I came up with it the other day. One one Sunday I was sitting in church and they called everybody to worship. And I sat down and I just thought about the word. And I said, I said, and I just came up with the idea that I'd like to change that word to wordship, to pass words And it's just like the music and jazz, the gospel. We're passing that word on, positive, which gives us life. And that's how I get through my days.
Yeah. So, for me, Lucy, it's a lot of always just affirmations and reading and listening to positive talks and things like that. And the bigger thing in coming here for me, uh, being the family and part of the family of ConnCAT, for me, it's really just about honoring the gift that God has given me, right? And actually working the gift that God has given me and then seeing how it impacts other people. And so it's like the talents, right? What talent do you have, right? You want to keep it to yourself, or you're going to kind of multiply it. And I'd rather be a multiplier than a divider. So that's one of the things for me. And lastly, I always tell people, one waters, one plants, but God gives the increase. I just want to be the water or the planter, and then the rest can just, leave it up to God. So I'm good.
That's beautiful. I want to thank all of you for joining me. I hope that this has sparked joy for someone who is listening, especially in this week. Like in all weeks, but this week has just felt hard. Like maybe harder than most. Um, so I also just want to remind people before you go, this has been Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. I have been talking about ConnCAT and ConnCorp's second annual Jazz and Gospel Brunch, which is September 14th. If you're listening to this live, that is in like less than exactly 48 hours. It's in about 46.5 hours starting. From noon to 4 p.m. at ConnCAT's current home, which is at 4 Science Park in New Haven. If you get on Winchester Ave, you drive right there. You can drive right there. You see it. I just want to thank all of you, Steve Driffin, Opal Harmon, Eric Clemens, William Fluker, for joining me today. I am so greatly appreciative, and I am so grateful for the work that all of you do and the space that all of you hold for creating beauty and creating joy. We don't have enough of it in this divisive world right now, and so thank you all, and for creating a space for faith, whatever faith listeners may subscribe to. I think that I maybe this is overly optimistic, but I want to believe that like most everyone subscribes to some higher power, and hopefully that compels people to do good in the world. And so thank you all for creating that space here. And of course, on Sunday, I'll see you then, if not sooner. New Haven's a small city, so I might see you sooner than that.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Harry,
Thank you,
take us
Lucy.
out. And thank you to Harry, the man behind the magic.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, thank you,
Clemens.
Harry.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. See you all on Sunday.
See you.